In this video, I'll be using the Ashcroft digital pressure indicator to perform a bleeding operation and to set it up to measure the hydrostatic pressure in the column that you can see here. The pressure indicator has two ports externally, but they're connected internally. So the first thing that I will do is connect it to remove any air that may be inside the sensor. This is crucial because air is compressible, and if there is air in it, it may not give you the right measurements when you're measuring the pressure. So the bleeding operation has to come first before making any measurements or even configuring the sensor to perform measurements. So the first thing that I will do is connect it to the process, which is water, in the column, to perform the bleeding operation, meaning to purge any air that may be in the column, in the sensor, that is. So these are the tubes that I'm going to be connecting to the ports of the sensor. You notice that at the end of these tubes there are couplers, and these couplers are suitable for this type of port, this type of metallic port. It may be tempting to connect this end directly into the port. I did that mistake, and I was told by LabVolt that I shouldn't be doing that. Although it fits perfectly, it doesn't work very well, and I did that mistake in the beginning. So the coupler has to go at the end of the tube in order for you to properly connect, to make the connection. So the first thing I'm going to do is connect this port to the tube, and the other end will go right down here. So I have to make sure that it's secured and that it's not going to move. So this looks good. This looks good. It's not going to vibrate. It's not going to move. Of course, the bends will add to the resistance that the water will have to overcome to get to the sensor. Of course, you want the tube to be as small as possible. I decide this is the distance that I have decided to put my sensor at from the column. It could be further, of course. You're not limited to have it there, but once it's fixed and once you have set it to 0, which I will do in a moment, then you shouldn't be moving it anymore. Otherwise, you will get bad results. So ideally, it should be even closer than that. But this is good. This is good enough. Again, the sensor doesn't have to be at this distance from the column. And it doesn't have to be at this level. It could be on any strut. So the strut right above it, or the strut right above the one that I just showed, or the one above. So it could be on any one of these struts, and it could be far away from the column, but that will affect your results. So now, before setting the indicator to measure the pressure, the hydrostatic pressure in my column, the first thing I need to do is the bleeding operation. I need to remove any excess water, excess gas that is, any gases that may be in the sensor. That's the first operation. And this is exactly what I'm going to do right now. So in order to bleed it, I need to connect the other port, the one that is not connected, to another tube. And this port as well, I should have the proper connections. So this is the coupler that will go into the port. Otherwise, the operation would not be done correctly. So you can see here there's water dripping. There's water coming out. So the column is exercising a pressure, and so that it's exercising a pressure on the sensor right now. But we're not doing any measurements. All what we're doing is trying to get out any air that may be in the sensor. So during this process, you need to make sure that this tube right here, you have to inspect it to make sure that there's no air in this tube. It's hard to do that on the camera, with the camera that is on, but that's what you need to do. You have to make sure that there is no more air in this tube. Not in this tube. It doesn't matter if in this tube there's air. You want it to get it out. You want it to get it. You actually want the air to get out of this tube. So if there's air in this tube, that's okay. But as long as there's no air in this tube. So I am satisfied right now with this bleeding operation. To me, from far away, it doesn't look like there is air in here. But if I wasn't on camera, then I would be making a closer inspection. But for now, this looks okay to me. So the second step is to disconnect this port and to set up the transmitter, not the transmitter, but to set up the indicator to read the hydrostatic pressure in my column. I need to lower the level, because now I'm going to set it to 0. So I need to bring the level of water in my column down to 0. Once it's down at 0, then I can set my indicator to 0. If I set my indicator to 0 while the column is half full, then I can actually do that. But then the pressure will start at that point. The pressure reading of my indicator will start halfway, approximately halfway from where the water is currently sitting. But for this video, I'm not going to do that. The first thing I'm going to do is drain the water, bring it down as close to 0 as possible. So you can see here, I'm going to bring it down as close to 0 as possible. I'm going to start draining. You can hear it draining now and see it drain. And I'm going to bring the level of water as close to 0 as possible. So that the pressure indicator will start to measure from the bottom up and not halfway up. very close now. It's getting closer and closer and closer. I'm just going to slow down the draining, and we're almost there. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. So now what I will do is I will set the pressure indicator to 0, because the column now is almost empty. It's not quite empty, but it's almost empty. There has to be a little bit of water so that it senses there's no air that goes into it. Because once air goes into it, then you're going to have to again restart the bleeding operation. But we don't want to do that. We don't want air to go into this tube right here. This one right here. So you have to leave a little bit of water in there, enough so that air doesn't go in. So now I'm satisfied with the height. I will turn on the indicator, and it's off right now, right? The bleeding operation was done while it was off. The indicator was off, and now I'm going to turn it on. Now I need to set it to 0. Although it's reading minus 0.01, I need to set it to 0 so that the pressure will start to add or increase from this point where the water is up. So as soon as the water increases, the pressure should be positive. So now I have not set it yet, but I will set it right now. So now it is 0. That's 0 psi. That's the unit that I have decided to put it in. There are other units as well that you can put it in. So only one port has to be connected. The other port does not have to be connected. Otherwise, you're going to be performing a bleeding operation. You don't want the water, you don't want anything connected to this port. Only this port has to be connected, not this one. You don't need to connect this port. As I said, both ports are connected to each other. If I connect this line to this port, water is going to start coming out. That's not what I want. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill this with water. And we should see a positive value displayed on my indicator. So I'm going to start filling it up. So the water is filling up. So I'm going to stop at approximately 0.5 meters. I am at approximately 50.5. At approximately 50.5. Let's see what this is reading. 0.72 psi. So I have to verify now if the theoretical value that I will be calculating matches that. If it does not, then I'd have to again restart perhaps the bleeding operation again. That would be better. And then again zero my indicator once the water is almost at zero level in the column. So I will take another reading just to see if my indicator is working well. That you need to do that. You can't just take one value and then rely on that value for all of your measurements. It probably is just a coincidence that you got the right value for this one. It's displaying the right value for this one, but it probably won't for another 2 or 3 values that that you're gonna be measuring. So of course you have to, if you want really accurate measurements, you really have to take many samples, maybe every 5 centimeters, maybe every 2 centimeters. That really depends on what you're trying to achieve. So I'll take just one more value to avoid making the video too long. So here I am at approximately 80, a little over 85 centimeters. A little bit over 85 centimeters. And if I look at my indicator, what is it displaying? 1.15 psi. So, of course, my theoretical value has to agree with that. It has to be as close as possible to it. If it's not, then, as I said, you have to restart the bleeding operation and the zeroing of your, setting the zero for your indicator.